Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And well, today is Hump Day.
Uh-oh. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
That's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. This is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I always like to say, the fun is all in the trying. It's just going to be me today, or at least that's what it's looking like, unless Mike is running a little bit late. Have not heard from him, but I'm sure that he will be reaching out very, very soon. A lot of times he gets called in at the last minute and has to go kind of do his thing. So in any case, I'm here, you're here, we're here, and we're going to have a good old time and make a good old time of it. So let's go ahead and kick it off, shall we? Let's kick it off the way that we usually do, with a quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length. All you got to do is check them out at hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. In fact, Ronald Reagan, the president himself, once said that the California Republican Assembly is the conscience of the Republican Party. You need to find out why. Just go to cragop.org. That's cragop.org. Because if you want to be a part of California's future today, you got to join CRA. And then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market at hawgholsters.com. That's HAWGholsters.com, because they like helping Americans wear guns. They like it so much, they're going to give you a discount if you use the discount code The Rundown. All one word, all caps, no spaces, just like it is right up there. And you're going to get your hog holster on discount today. And then finally, we have the place where you can find all things tactical except the gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. They have all of the outdoor gear, all of the tactical gear, all of the what you name it, they have it. Like I said, they have all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. Also want to remind you, if you haven't already done so, sign up for the 2A newsletter. It's available. This is, trust me, if you go to 2anews.us, hit that subscribe here button, you will have all of your Second Amendment news delivered to you right in your inbox, Monday through Friday, whether you're talking from the blogosphere, from the vlogosphere, whether you're talking about from the 2A news media to the regular mainstream news media. Trust me, all of the Second Amendment news and stories that you need, all of the deals that are available for you out there, you will find in your inbox Monday through Friday. Just take some time right now. Go and sign up. Do it. Do it now. Also want to remind you, if you're watching this program live, right? Let me clarify. If you're watching this program during the 3 o'clock hour on the West Coast, or you're watching this show during the 6 o'clock hour on the East Coast, you're watching this show live, which means we're taking your comments. We would love to hear what you have to say. In fact, we encourage you to tell us what you have to say. In fact, we encourage you to disagree with us, because that's the easiest way for you to, well, get on the show. In any case, go ahead and let us know what you think. And the reason why, by the way, just so you know, if you do, probably going to mock you. Yeah.
Another mockingbird? Another mockingbird?
Yeah, that was real bright of me to go ahead and play the wrong sound. But in any case, see this, once again, this is the thing. When you're watching the show, I'm both in front of the camera and behind the camera. So sometimes you get a little oopsie like that. But in any case, it's still the same. Still taking your comments. Would love to hear what you have to say. Checking y'all out right about her. And, well, yeah. No comments as of yet. So let's go ahead and get into today's stories. We're going to start off with a landmark settlement that has taken place here over with Meta. So Meta has basically, that Meta was basically being sued over teens getting addicted to social media, right? And so they decided that they were going to go ahead and settle this lawsuit. And here's a little bit from the news media. This being reported by Fox News as to what went into this landmark $18 billion settlement.
And a major update on Meta's landmark trial. States that filed the lawsuit and Meta agreeing to settle claims that the company's social media platforms harmed children. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Dana Perino. Bill Hemmer is off, and we have breaking news.
We do. Huge settlement here. I'm Bill Malugin. Good morning to you all. According to court documents, Meta is denying any wrongdoing in this agreement, but this judgment does require some really big-time changes to the social media company, including but not limited to better age verification, usage limits, nighttime access restrictions, and required breaks in usage.
And Claudia Cowan is live outside the courthouse in Oakland, California with more. Hi, Claudia.
Yeah, good morning. A lot of breaking news here in Oakland this morning. You know, court was set to resume in just about an hour with Instagram CEO Adam Mosseri resuming his testimony. Instead, what we expect to happen is for the judge to thank and excuse the jury because the two sides have hammered out a deal here in this landmark federal case. Under the terms of the settlement, over the next 10 years, Meta will have to pay up to $17 billion to the coalition of 29 states that sued the tech giant here in federal court. It will also have to make big changes to how Facebook and Instagram operate for minors and make stronger efforts to flag and remove users under 13. Provided the court approves the deal, California alone will receive up to $2 billion. California Attorney General Rob Bonta saying, quote, "Today we have secured a settlement with Meta that will make social media less dangerous for our kids and make a world of difference for children and their families." He added, quote, "Meta has agreed to make massive transformations that will reduce the risk of harm from its platforms and will do it within months," end quote. The long list of changes include time limits, stopping notifications, a block on the app during critical overnight hours, and bans on beauty features like plastic surgery filters. Bonta says the deal addresses the concerns at the core of the lawsuit and institutes real changes and protections for kids. Now, Meta had calculated that losing this landmark federal trial could cost hundreds of billions of dollars in damages. Instead, Dana and Bill, after just 4 days of testimony, this trial is over at a cost to Meta of $17 billion and big changes on the platform.
So basically what's going on here is this. 4 days of testimony and things were not going well for Meta. Things were not going well for Instagram. Keep in mind that this is not about the facts of the case. This is about the emotions of the case. And what in essence wound up happening was that the plaintiffs basically brought story after story of teens who evidently had unfettered access to the social media company, to Instagram and to Facebook. Clearly little to no parental supervision. Clearly, I mean, basically what this is parents couldn't keep their kids off social media. And because Facebook was good at doing what every owner of every product did, they made their product so that people liked it. They made it so that the product gave people what they wanted, even if what they wanted wasn't good for them, right? That they consider that making it addictive. Now, I don't know. I have to be honest. I'm kind of torn about this because I do believe that social media has played a very negative role in the lives of young people and quite honestly plays a negative role in the lives of a lot of adults as well. I do believe that excess usage has caused a lot of challenges and whatnot for teens. I don't disagree with that. The excessive use part, though, and how it's used, that's driven more by the user and the user's ability to access it, which is largely driven when we're talking about kids, we're talking about with their parents. And so their parents are the ones that are driving it. Their parents are the ones who have the ability through their devices, through technology, to put in parental blocks. I'll give you an example. I know that my kids have my grandkids have access to their iPads and their tablets where they can watch certain things, but generally they watch it in the company of their parents, right? They have restrictions on what sites, what tools are available on these devices. And they have a time in which these devices automatically shut off, meaning you do not have access to the internet on these devices any longer. Now, these aren't teenagers; these are smaller kids. But my point is that there are already tools in place that can help parents restrict access to their children's access to these devices, to these websites, right? Why are we now putting additional, now we're basically putting additional mandates on companies who have a product that gives people what they want. And now we're basically going to go after them because they have a product that people want. I just don't know I just don't know how I feel about that. Some of these restrictions that they're putting in place, I wish it didn't take a lawsuit to have them put those things in place. It probably really didn't require a lawsuit to have them put those things in place. But now they're basically going to get out of this lawsuit. They're basically getting out of this lawsuit and they're settling it. By the way, none of that $18 billion is going to anyone who's been harmed. All of that money is going to the governments. All that money is going to the government. It's going to the various different 26 states that sued. So none of that money is going to the quote unquote victims here. But I do agree, and I am glad for it. Only in this sense, only in that these changes are going to be made. My question is, why did it take you being sued for it to happen? See, when companies when they don't try to do the common good, here's the thing: there's a difference between capitalism, crony capitalism, and free market economics. And part of the thing about a free market economy is you have to understand that you don't want to do harm to the people that utilize your product. Right? You want to make sure you take care of the people who both utilize your product, and you want to take care of the people who provide your product, your employees. By doing so, it may seem like this is a short-term bad because, well, we're going to restrict access to users. It may cost us more money, but in the long run, it helps you. You should never have to wait for a government mandate for you to do the right thing. What's interesting about a lot of these companies that do this, it's funny because you take companies like whether it's Walmart or Nordstrom or a lot of these now publicly held companies, when they were privately held, they operated oftentimes under a different standard, right? When they were privately held, you generally didn't see as many employee complaints. They generally did better by their employees. They generally did have greater emphasis on customer or consumer satisfaction. But when they became corporate, and I'm not against the idea of corporations per se as a legal entity. The problem is, as an economic entity, what corporations wind up doing is they become this. The number one goal of them seems to be chasing the next quarter's profit, and there seems to be less of an emphasis on the long-term well-being of the company. Because the long-term well-being of the company is directly tied to the long-term well-being of their customer base, their client base, their consumers, and their employees and suppliers. And I think most companies that are successful, when you start to see the rise of those companies, that's what makes them successful. Now, the advantage of becoming corporate and selling stock is you can infuse money into the business that allows for accelerated growth. The problem is that then you're answering to a board, you're answering to shareholders, and those shareholders are interested in one thing. I won't say the shareholders, but the board, the shareholders, whatever it is, the corporate entity is interested largely in seeking profit. Now, I don't know how you change corporate culture in that way. I don't know. I'm not a business expert in that sense of the word, but I know enough to know that increasing regulation on these businesses is not the way to do it. Forcing someone to do the right thing is not the same as doing the right thing. Because here's the deal: when you force someone to do the right thing, you're setting a floor for their behavior, right? No, you're setting a ceiling. Because those businesses will only do as much as they are required to do. Because they're like, well, if this is all the government requires me to do, then that's all I'm going to do. Because, hey, I must be doing it right. Because the government says it's okay. I'm doing it good if that's all I have to provide. But when left to their own devices, good companies, good employers, right? Good providers of products, goods, and services, they go above and beyond that floor because that. once again, there is no guideline. So they're like, I'm going to do my best to provide the best that I can. And I'm going to use that in order to gain goodwill within my consumer base in order to increase the quality of, in order to be able to increase the reach of my product. I'm going to do that to take care of my employees to make sure that I'm providing a better product. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on it. I'm not a big fan of this because once again, all Meta is really guilty of is providing a product that people want. Now, if they knew it was harmful, now we're talking about something different. If they knew that there were things that were harmful and yet they weren't providing any sort of protections, that's a different story. That is a whole different story. And I think one of the things that they did not want to come out during this trial is that they maybe had done enough research and maybe they knew. Maybe, I'm not saying they did because we haven't seen the evidence that they did. And they've already come out and they part of the settlement is they've acknowledged no wrongdoing. So maybe they knew. I don't know. That's a possible thing. I just don't like the precedent that it sets. Well, I guess the fact that it's a settlement, it's not really a precedent, but I think other companies are going to start to take a look at this. What I'm wondering is why are they not going after TikTok? Right? Why after Meta? Why after the American-owned company and not after TikTok, which, by the way, is still probably got the biggest audience and is as guilty, if not more, than a lot of this, than Facebook and Meta. I'm wondering why. One would wonder, but when you consider who the states are, by the way, I do have to note, it did note in the article there at Fox News that this was a bipartisan thing. So the concerns that people have is not just liberals, right? Although I think the fact that they chose to specifically focus on American companies, I think is a problem. But anyway, this is definitely something for you to keep an eye on, for us to keep an eye on, because after this, you got to believe they're going to go after TikTok. They have to at this point go after TikTok. If they don't, then they seem slightly hypocritical, because TikTok is as bad, if not worse, than Instagram or Facebook. All right, moving right along. Trump scores big win against House progressive who assaulted ICE. This story here over at Fox News. Let me read a little bit of it for you here. It says here, Biden and Trump appointed judges ruled McGliver cannot get the case thrown out on legislative immunity grounds. Here it says a federal judge appointed by former President Joe Biden is siding with the Trump administration in refusing to dismiss a case against House Democrat accused of assaulting federal immigration officers. 2 of the 3 judges on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit Court refused to dismiss the Department of Justice case against Representative LaMonica McGliver, a Democrat from New Jersey, stemming from a 2025 incident at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, facility in Newark, New Jersey. An unannounced visit to Delaney Hall Detention Center by a group of Democratic officials devolved into chaos in May 2025 that culminated in a physical standoff between federal lawmakers and ICE agents and the arrest of Newark Mayor Ras Baraka. McGliver was charged with 3 counts, including assaulting and impeding federal officers. And here's a little bit of a video, so you can determine yourself whether or not you believe, based on this video, that she's guilty of a crime. That's her in the red right there. You see she's trying to force her way in. She's pushing on the officers. Officers are trying to move her out of the way, and she's like fighting back. All right, so to me, it's really kind of clear that now, by the way, what she's trying to say is because she was acting as a member of Congress, that she should be immune from prosecution, meaning she should get to go and assault law enforcement officers. And yes, ICE officers are law enforcement officers. For those of you out there who don't want to acknowledge that, let me just tell you, yeah, they're law enforcement officers. She believes that that they should be able to go and assault cops, as long as they're doing it under the guise of doing it in the name of Congress. Now, as far as I know, the only real immunity you have are the things you do while actually serving in Congress. When I say that, I mean, for example, when you're speaking on the floor, if you say something that either libels or defrauds somebody, if you libel somebody, if you defame somebody, you have immunity. If you vote on a law that as a result of that law, someone winds up being harmed or injured, you cannot personally be sued. It's that sort of immunity. But you do not, under the guise of I'm a congressperson, and so I'm going to go to this facility and I'm going to try and force my way in. Well, no, and I'm going to try and, push and shove and attack officers in order to get in. No, you don't have immunity from that. You don't. You should not have immunity from that. That's not even part of your job description. Your job is to write laws, pass laws. That's your job. To analyze legislation and determine whether or not it should become laws. That's your job. Part of that is you're going to speak out on that legislation, whether you're for it or against it. So the things you say when you're doing that generally tend to be protected and you have immunity for it. When you vote on it, that you generally tend to have immunity for that. But you don't get to go and assault law enforcement and expect to get immunity for it. See, it's actions like hers that have people out there thinking, I can take my car and I can ram it into an ICE officer. When they say we can do by any means necessary, go do what you want, go resist. That is why people are getting shot by cops, because they're getting behind the wheels of cars and they're saying, well, I'm not going to be able to move that person with my body, but I can move them with my car. That's the sort of incitement of violence. And that's the reason why that person needs to be prosecuted. She needs to be prosecuted because she is the one that is helping to create this danger. By the way, Mike has reached out. Mike is letting me know that I guess they got a big storm going on there in Florida where he's at there in Orlando. So that's the reason why he's not here. He don't want to be there in the studio and get electrocuted. Plus, I'm sure that messes with both the electricity as well as with their access to electricity, as well as with their internet access. So that's why Mikey's not here. But I am sure that he is probably partaking of some libations, without us. I know. I feel left out too. But it is what it is. Moving right along. All right, now we have NSSF is basically pointing out now it's kind of time to give up on microstamping. Now, microstamping is something for those of you who do not. Well, you know what? Let me read from the article, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. If I have to tell you what microstamping is, I don't know if you'd be tuning in the show if I had to tell you what it is. But let's read from the article because this is from Tom Knighton over there at Bearing Arms, and he probably describes a little bit of it. It says here, NSSF, it's past time to give up on microstamping. The idea behind microstamping is simple, if stupid. Each gun would stamp a unique identifier on each round fired. Then police could use that to trace who shot the gun in the first place. The fact that anyone with any elementary knowledge of firearms can see all the ways this wouldn't work is apparently lost on anti-gunners. But what else is new? Still, the idea continued to be perpetuated. This is going to change everything, you see. The only as the NSSF points out, it's never going to work. And this is from NSSF. The Commerce Department's National Institute of Standards and Technology letter sent sent a letter to Chairman Brian Babin, a Republican of Texas, to tell the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Science, Space, and Technology that there is no reliable evidence that gun control's vaunted goal of requiring microstamping on every handgun sold at retail would actually work. The science just doesn't show that it's ready or prime time. Much like other gun control fantasy ideas, this one just doesn't work. That's what NSSF has been trying to tell gun control state legislatures and Congress. To be clear, NIST officials informed Chairman Babin that, quote, NIST has not conducted independent research in this area, nor does the agency currently have an active work stream on this topic, end quote. Studying it in the real-world application they explained, would require a significant investment of time and resources. What NIST officials did, though, was a deep dive into the studies that have already been conducted and synthesized the results. The answer they came back with is that microstamping shows no evidence that is reliable technology that can produce repeated and reliable, legible alphanumeric or gear codes. Here's the most salient comment they could make. There is significant disagreement regarding the viability of this technology. Bottom line is that it just doesn't work. And folks, so we have a requirement here in the state of California that requires microstamping. And originally it didn't just require it, but initially once the technology was deemed to work, then this law would go into effect. We do that here in California. We say, well, if any such technology ever perhaps works, then we're going to go ahead and institute it. And then when she was Attorney General here in the state of California, she deemed that microstamping worked. Even though, once again, the people who are experts in this say, yeah, no, it doesn't work. There's no way to reliably put those serial numbers on the shell casings. The place they're expected to be is basically using the firing pin. The problem is that all you need is really a fingernail file in about 5 minutes, and you can undo that. It's that simple. Now, in California, they required it in 2 places, which, oh, by the way, is impossible. And so what you wound up having happen is this was in order to get on what is called the not unsafe handgun roster in the state of California. Meaning if you have a firearm and you want it to be sold in the state of California by retailers, it's got to make the not unsafe handgun roster. And in order to do that, you got to pay $200. You have to send a copy of the gun. It's got to pass a drop test. It's got to have a loaded chamber indicator. It's got to have a magazine release lock, meaning if a magazine pops out, if the magazine pops out, even if there's one around in the chamber, it can't fire. Oh, and it has to have microstamping in 2 places. And any new model firearm, in order to be sold in California, had to pass that test, had to have those things. Even if it was an old model where you turned around and maybe you got your springs from a different place, or you painted it a different color, or you changed out where you got your triggers. Sorry, that's now a new model firearm and has to meet those things. So we've seen an ever shrinking list of new firearms that could be sold in the state of California. It amounted to a ban on new model semi-automatic handguns in the state of California. Well, it's in the process, I believe it's in the process of being worked and thrown out. But once again, now here they are. They're still trying to push this microstamping at the federal level. Here's the thing. It just does not work. And I don't understand what it's going to take to get them to realize that. There seems to be little to no willingness to even consider the fact that maybe, just maybe, you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe, just maybe, you folks who know nothing about firearms, know nothing about firearms technology, maybe you need to quit. Maybe you need to stop doing this stuff. Stop trying to institute this stuff. I don't know. What do I know? I've only been working in this industry for the last 15 years? 15 years? No, not more than 15 years. 15 years? Yeah, about the last 15 years I've been advocating in this area. I've come to know and understand the technology, and I look at the technology and I look at the things that they're proposing, and the things just don't work. This is what happens when you get your science ideas from movies, right? When you start saying we're going to get technology, we're going to institute something that I saw on Star Trek. It's just a bad idea. It just is. I don't know. Anyway, and I'm hoping. Well, gun control folks will. Did I say that? I think that was a Freudian slip. Gun control folks will never, ever admit that it doesn't work. Because if it keeps one gun off the streets, to them, it's worth impinging or infringing on the rights of all Americans. That's just how they are. They do not care if it actually works. All right, and then finally, people need to learn that words have consequences. Oh, so there is a nurse. And this nurse decided that she was going to say some, basically that she was going to threaten, I don't want to say threaten's not, but she was going to wish very, very bad things upon Karoline Leavitt, who was the press secretary for the White House. And, Here she is. I wanted you to hear exactly what she had to say. Now, keep in mind, this is the labor and delivery nurse, right? This is someone who has taken an oath to do no harm. And yet this is what she is wishing on social media.
As a labor and delivery nurse, it gives me great joy to wish Karoline Leavitt a 4th degree tear. I hope that you fucking rip from bow to stern and never shit normally again, you cunt.
Yeah, so that's her. Well, Florida has issued an emergency suspension of the license of a nurse who wished childbirth injury on Karoline Leavitt. Let's read the story. It says here, Florida has issued an emergency suspension of the license of the nurse who wished childbirth injury on Karoline Leavitt. The emergency suspension ordered by Fox News Digital reads, quote, Joseph A. Lapato, MD, PhD, State Surgeon General orders the emergency suspension of the license of Alexis Baker Lawler, RN, to practice as a registered nurse in the state of Florida. In a Wednesday post on X, Florida Attorney General James Utmeyer praised the move, saying effective today, Lexi Lawler is no longer allowed to practice nursing in Florida. Quote, they see, making statements like that wish pain and suffering on anyone when those statements are directly related to one's practice is an ethical red line we should not cross. I am proud of Surgeon General. Let's go here. Let's read more of it. I'm proud of the Surgeon General for taking decisive action. And by the way, so am I. I think that there needs to be standards for conduct, and I think that just like you couldn't have a judge, come out and say something that is prejudicial about a particular case, because there may be a type of case that goes before them. She may have somebody who supports Donald Trump. They may show up to the hospital in their MAGA, pregnancy gear. Is she going to wish that that harm is done to them? Is she going to attempt to do harm to them? We don't know. We honestly do not know. But that statement she made is really kind of prejudicial. So anyone who as a part of their profession wishes that sort of pain and harm on somebody, well, that person probably shouldn't be allowed to practice medicine. And so hats off to the Florida Attorney General or Surgeon General for that case. And by the way, the original picture the picture that you saw with the video, the guy standing, the black guy that was in there, that's the Surgeon General who was responsible for suspending the license. So there you go. All right, folks, that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get your Hog holster today. All right, this first one here, by the way, all of these are going to be brought to you by the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust. The first one here, Bugs Bunny declares for WNBA draft. Now, we're going to have an issue here because Bugs is not only, I guess if Bugs declares herself to be a woman, she should be eligible for the WNBA draft, despite the fact that it's a different species, a rabbit. Now, the question is going to be, though, is he or she sincere about being a woman and playing in the WNBA draft? I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm guessing it's a ringer. I mean, if you've seen, what was the movie with Space Jam? I don't know that this would necessarily be fair competition. In honor of Dolly Parton, man to attempt to work all day from 9 to 5. Yeah, I don't know who this crazy man is. Must be trying to win some sort of a world record or something like that. I don't know. But, he's setting a bad precedent for the rest of us. All right, Girl Scouts to award Muslim badge to any girl who gets married before the age of 8. I'm willing to bet that this Girl Scout troop is somewhere in Michigan, maybe Dearborn. Maybe they're in Minnesota. Minnesota, they're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Anyway, I don't know. Girl Scouts, they do tend to be kind of left-wing. And who knows, maybe they're part of the Red-Green Alliance. El Sayed, beheading infidel with machete, no different than a haircut. Now, okay, once again, this is from the Babylon Bee, fake news you can trust. So did he actually say that? No. But he did try to equate getting a circumcision with castration. I think there are several million people who would tell you that there is a significant difference between the two. Hassan Piker says anyone trying to twist his words as anti-Semitic is a dirty, lying Jew. Yeah, that's actually something he's probably said. Not a doubt in my mind that Hassan Piker, who is beyond anti-Semitic, has probably used those exact words, if not saltier language. And then finally, residents of heaven torn between attending Chuck Norris's martial arts seminar or going to the Dolly Parton show. No offense, but I think they're going to see Dolly Parton. Chuck's been up there for a little bit. All right, folks, so that now brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with the folks over at Hitman Industries. They make rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase at any length at hitmanindustries.net. Then we've got the California Republican Party, or California Republican Assembly, otherwise known as the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out today at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. And then there's the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. Just go to hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, where they like helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, there is the place where you can find all things tactical except a gun, and that would be at uscombatgear.com. Now, that brings us to the end of our program. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Throat Punch Thursday. Till then, y'all have fun, stay safe, and we'll see ya mañana.